A tomb guard's duty is absolute silence and stillness. But when he saw the little girl walking towards that van, something made him break his sacred vow. What he found inside would haunt him forever. The air at Arlington National Cemetery hung heavy with a hushed reverence that no city noise could pierce. Under the vast, clear Virginia sky, rows of pristine white headstones stretched across rolling green hills, a silent testament to sacrifice. At the heart of it all stood the tomb of the unknown soldier, and on the black mat before it, Sergeant Kai Tanaka stood his watch. At 30 years old, Kai's face was a mask of disciplined granite, carved by years of military service. His crisp, dark blue army dress uniform was flawless, the brass on his belt buckle gleaming, his M14 rifle held with a practiced, ceremonial stillness. To the dozens of tourists gathered at a respectful distance, he was a living statue, a symbol of unwavering duty. But behind his mirrored sunglasses, his eyes were anything but still. They were the eyes of a former military policeman, trained to see the cracks in a perfect picture. For 2 years as an MP, Kai had learned that danger rarely announces itself with a bang, it seeps in through the quiet details that don't add up. And today, something wasn't adding up. It was a white work van, parked at the far edge of the visitor's lot, partially obscured by a large oak tree. It had been there for nearly 45 minutes, engine idling softly. A faded, peeling logo on its side read, Henderson & Sons Plumbing, but the van itself was unusually clean for a contractor's vehicle, lacking the usual dings and mud splatters. Behind the wheel sat a man in his 40s, nondescript and forgettable, who occasionally glanced not at the tomb, but at the crowd. Kai's attention was a slow, sweeping radar. His focus drifted from the van to the tourists. And that's when he saw her. She was a small girl, maybe 6 or 7, in a shockingly bright pink jacket that stood out against the somber greens and grays of the cemetery. She wasn't with a family, not laughing or pointing. Instead, she traced an anxious orbit at the fringe of the crowd, her small hands twisting the hem of her jacket. Her blonde ponytail was messy, as if done in a frantic hurry. She wasn't watching the ceremonial guard change, she was scanning faces, her gaze darting from the crowd to the street, and then, inevitably, to the white van. Once. Twice. A third time. This wasn't a child's distracted wandering. This was a search pattern. A nervous, methodical patrol. Kai shifted his weight, the leather of his shoes groaning softly on the mat. His heart began a low, steady drumbeat, a rhythm he knew from 1,000 tense standoffs as an MP. He watched as the girl's eyes fixed on the van one last time. Then it happened. A single, soft honk. Not loud or angry, but brief and deliberate. An electronic summons. The girl froze. Her entire posture changed. The anxiety evaporated, replaced by a chilling resignation. As if a switch had been flipped, she turned away from the crowd and began walking, her steps robotic and unnaturally steady, straight toward the road, straight toward that van. Kai's blood ran cold. The idling van. The deliberate signal. The girl's automated response. The pieces clicked together in his mind with the terrifying certainty of a rifle bolt locking into place. This was wrong. Deeply, fundamentally wrong. She was moving with a zombie-like purpose, her small legs carrying her past the designated walkways, onto the grass, heading for the access road that separated the memorial from the parking lot. To a casual observer, it might look like a child finally spotting her family's car. But Kai saw the lack of recognition, the absence of relief. He saw the stiff set of her shoulders, the downward cast of her eyes. It was the walk of someone under compulsion. She was 20 feet from the curb. 15. And then, Sergeant Kai Tanaka did the unthinkable. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Phones that had been recording the solemn ritual now jerked to capture this shocking break in protocol. A tomb guard had stepped off the mat. He had broken his sacred, silent vigil. To the veterans in the crowd, it was a moment of pure sacrilege, a violation of one of the military's most honored traditions. But Kai didn't hear their murmurs. His world had narrowed to the girl in the pink jacket and the van waiting for her. He strode forward, his ceremonial march replaced with the urgent, ground-eating steps of an infantryman. The van's passenger door clicked open. "Miss," Kai's voice was calm, but it carried the unmistakable weight of authority. "Please step away from the road." She froze, her head snapping up, startled. From inside the van, a man's voice, thick with fake friendliness, called out. "It's okay, sweetie. Come on, get in." The girl, whose name he would later learn was Lily, took a hesitant step toward the van. Then she looked back, her eyes locking with Kai's from behind his sunglasses. Her lips parted, forming two silent, desperate words that struck him like a physical blow. "Help me." Kai's heart hammered against his ribs. He moved faster, crossing the remaining distance to place himself directly in her path. The man, Mr. Henderson, leaned across the passenger seat, his face a mask of manufactured concern. He was 40-something, with thinning hair and a soft-looking face that seemed incapable of malice. "It's all right, officer," Henderson said, his voice smooth as oil. "She's just my niece. Gets a little overwhelmed. Don't be shy now, love. Let's go." Lily stood rooted to the spot, her body angled toward the van but her feet refusing to move. "Miss," Kai repeated, his voice firm, projecting calm through the growing confusion. "I need you to come stand behind me. Now." She turned fully toward him, and in that moment, he saw it all. It wasn't the confusion of a lost child. It was the polished, disciplined terror of a child who had been trained what to do, and what would happen if she didn't. The van's door opened wider. "Lily," the man said, his voice a little firmer now. "Let's not make this difficult. Come here." Kai's hand drifted to the radio clipped to his belt. He pressed the transmit button, his voice low and steady as bedrock. "Sentinel 1 to command. I am off post at the Tomb Plaza. Potential code Adam situation. White utility van, adjacent to the access road. One minor female, appears to be in distress. Request ANC police support." "Copy, Sentinel 1, the voice crackled back, sharp with alarm. "Support en route. Proceed with extreme caution." Lily had stopped moving entirely. Her small chin quivered, her hands clasped so tightly in front of her that her knuckles were bone white. But she wasn't crying. That's what disturbed Kai the most. A scared child should be crying. Her silence was unnatural. He took a step closer and knelt slightly, bringing himself to her eye level. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice softer than he thought possible. She hesitated, her eyes darting to the van. After a long moment, she whispered, "I'm not supposed to talk to strangers." The phrase, meant to keep a child safe, was being used as a weapon against her. Kai's jaw tightened. "That man in the van. Do you know him?" She didn't answer with a word. But her head gave a slow, almost imperceptible shake. That was all the confirmation Kai needed. The van's engine revved once, inching forward a foot. It was a clear act of intimidation. "Stay behind me," Kai told the girl, rising smoothly to his full height. He positioned himself like a living shield between her and the road just as the van's door swung fully open. Henderson slid halfway out, palms raised in a gesture of false innocence. "She wandered off," he said, the words tumbling out. "I'm her uncle, Rob. She gets overwhelmed in big places. I've been looking everywhere for her." Kai didn't respond. His eyes, honed by his MP training, were scanning the vehicle's interior. A crushed fast food bag. An old road atlas. And then he saw it. Tucked in the dark space behind the passenger seat, almost completely hidden by a dirty toolbox, was a sliver of gray. A loop of white plastic. Duct tape. And a small coil of zip ties. Kai's fingers instinctively brushed the cool steel of his rifle. He didn't move it, but his hand was ready. Henderson noticed the slight movement. His friendly demeanor flickered. "Look, mate, this is a huge misunderstanding. You're scaring her. Kids panic, you know how it is." Kai spoke one sentence, his voice flat and cold. "She just told me she doesn't know you. I suggest you put the vehicle in park." Henderson blinked, as if slapped. A nervous, forced chuckle escaped his lips. "This is absurd. I told you, I'm her uncle. She's just being difficult." "Then you won't mind waiting for the authorities to confirm your story," Kai countered, his stance unwavering. Lily was now clutching the back of his uniform pants, her small form almost completely hidden behind him. "Are you serious?" Henderson's tone sharpened, losing its friendly veneer and gaining a hard, aggressive edge. "I don't need to be interrogated by some tin soldier with a rifle. You're the one terrifying her, not me. Look at her, she's hiding from you." A few tourists murmured in agreement, their sympathies momentarily swayed by the seemingly reasonable man being confronted by an armed soldier. Kai felt their gazes, a mixture of doubt and judgment, but he filtered them out. "You're parked in a restricted area," Kai stated, his voice a low, level monotone. "Your vehicle's logo is inconsistent with its condition. You've offered no proof of guardianship, and the child has denied knowing you. That's more than enough for me." Henderson let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head. "You think you've got it all figured out, huh? Playing the hero." He leaned forward, trying to get a better look at the girl. "Lily, tell the nice soldier who I am." The girl just pressed herself tighter against Kai's leg. Kai's gaze drifted back to the open van door. This time, his eyes caught more. Beside the toolbox where he'd seen the tape, a corner of something else was visible. It was a different color, a bright royal blue. A child's backpack, decorated with faded rocket ship patches. Protruding from its side pocket was a child's water bottle. And on the floor mat below, half-kicked under the seat, was a single, small boy's sneaker. The air rushed out of Kai's lungs. This wasn't just about Lily. The pieces rearranged themselves in his mind with sickening speed. The two backpacks. The tools of restraint. This wasn't an impromptu abduction. This was a practiced operation. Henderson saw where Kai was looking. A flicker of pure panic crossed his face before being replaced by cold fury. "Keep your hands on the dashboard," Kai commanded, his shadow falling over the driver. The man's eyes narrowed to venomous slits. "You have no authority to hold me here. What are you going to do, stand there all day?" Kai didn't answer. He took one deliberate step closer. Then another. He unslung his M14 from his shoulder. He didn't raise it, but held it at a low-ready position across his chest. The soft scrape of the nylon sling against his wool uniform was the only sound in the sudden, tense silence. It was a sound louder than any shout, a clear, unmistakable signal that the ceremony was over. This was now a matter of life and death. The distant wail of sirens grew steadily louder, a sound of imminent rescue for Kai and of a closing trap for Henderson. The man's face was a mask of feral desperation. He gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white. Just as two Arlington National Cemetery police cruisers screeched to a halt behind the van, their lights painting the scene in strobing flashes of red and blue, Henderson made his move. The van's engine roared, and the tires screamed on the pavement as it lurched forward, angling sharply toward the open road, toward escape. The crowd screamed. A police officer yelled, "Get back!" But Kai didn't step back. He stepped forward. He planted his feet, bracing his body directly in the vehicle's path, a human barricade in a dark blue uniform. He raised his rifle to a high-port position, a final, nonverbal command to stop. Lily shrieked behind him, covering her ears. The van shuddered to a halt inches from him. At that exact moment, as two officers converged on the driver's side, Kai's MP instinct screamed a new warning. His peripheral vision caught a blur of motion. Side door, he yelled. He's got a partner. A shadow detached itself from the side of the van. A younger man, hoodie pulled low, had slid the cargo door open and was making a break for it. He didn't get 5 feet. A third officer, a plainclothes detective who had arrived with the others, tackled him in a flying leap, sending them both crashing to the ground. As they struggled, a roll of duct tape and a black, compact taser clattered onto the asphalt. Chaos erupted. One officer shattered the driver's side window with his baton. Glass exploded inward as another wrenched the door open. Henderson was fighting, swinging his elbows, screaming obscenities as they dragged him from the driver's seat. "You don't understand," he shrieked as they pinned him face first against the hood of his own van, blood trickling from a cut on his cheek. "It's a mistake. You're ruining my life." The crowd watched in stunned silence, phones held aloft, recording the violent, terrifying end to what had begun as a silent standoff. Behind Kai, Lily finally collapsed onto the grass, her small body racked with deep, broken sobs. The dam of her trained composure had finally burst. Kai immediately knelt, placing a steadying hand on her shaking shoulder while his eyes remained on the scene. "You're safe now," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "You're safe." An officer opened the van's rear doors, his face paling as he peered inside. He immediately began taking photos. From where he knelt, Kai could see it all: another set of zip ties, a half-empty bottle of children's allergy medicine often used to sedate, rope, and latex gloves. It was a kidnapper's toolkit. The lead detective walked over, his face grim. "Sergeant," he said, his voice low and heavy with meaning. "You have no idea what you just stopped." They moved Lily to the quiet sanctuary of the Tomb's guardhouse, wrapping her in a thick police blanket. The story came out in fragments. Her name was Lily Fletcher, she was 7, and she had been taken from a park in Northern Virginia 2 days ago. The blue backpack with the rockets belonged to a 9-year-old boy named Ethan who had vanished from a Maryland playground a month prior. Kai had not just saved one child, he had dismantled a link in a predatory chain that stretched across state lines. Later that afternoon, after giving his formal statement, Kai returned to his post. He stood on the mat, rifle at his shoulder, a perfect statue once more. The tourists had mostly returned to their quiet observation, though now they glanced at him with a new kind of awe. He was no longer just a symbol. He was a guardian. As the sun began to dip lower, a woman and a small girl appeared, escorted by a cemetery official. It was Lily and her mother. Lily was no longer wearing the pink jacket but was clinging tightly to her mother's hand. They stopped at the edge of the plaza. Kai could not move. He could not speak. It was the rule. Lily's mother looked at him, her face a mess of tears and overwhelming gratitude. Her lips formed the words, "Thank you," but no sound emerged. Lily looked up at the stoic soldier who had seen her when no one else had. She gave a small, certain, deliberate nod. It was a gesture of profound understanding, an acknowledgement that passed between a rescued soul and her rescuer. That evening, in the locker room, a younger guard, barely out of training, approached Kai. "Sir," he said, his voice full of admiration. "That was unbelievable. But you stepped off the mat. Aren't you going to be in serious trouble?" Kai paused, carefully hanging up his pristine blue uniform. He looked at the young soldier, whose face was a mixture of awe and concern for protocol. "I did my job," Kai said simply. "But the rules, sir." Kai turned, his gaze steady and clear. "Some duties," he said, his voice quiet but firm, "are more important than rules." For his actions, Sergeant Kai Tanaka received no public medal. His name wasn't in the papers. But a 7-year-old girl named Lily went home that night. And somewhere in Maryland, a family now had a new, desperate thread of hope. For a man who stood guard over the memory of heroes, there was no greater honor. In a world full of distractions, how many of us would have noticed the small details that were out of place? When faced with a choice between strict rules and a gut feeling that something is terribly wrong, what would you do? This story is a powerful reminder that heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes, they wear a uniform and stand a silent watch. Show your gratitude for the vigilance of guardians like Sergeant Tanaka. Please comment respect below to honor their dedication. If this story moved you, hit the like button, subscribe for more incredible true stories, and share this video with someone who needs to see what true duty looks like.